سبيل الدموع سبيل مريح تنهدى يا صاحي كي تستريح وبث الدعاء الخفي الصريح.
So we're beginning to see that there seems to be a clash here. That to say that on the one hand a bid'ah is required, if for want of a better word, in order to bring about certain things which are compulsory or certain things which are mustahab, which the Sharia itself hasn't spoken of, seems to be quite contradicted in itself, because something which is compulsory, something which is mustahab, the Sharia would have spoke about. It's things which are mubah, which the Sharia may not have spoke about, but it's not going to leave out things which are compulsory and things which are mubah. So we're starting to see that these are mutually exclusive, and one can't say that that something which is compulsory and something which is mustahab is a bid'ah, because by definition saying something is compulsory and something is mustahab, that automatically makes it fall into what should already have been evidenced and discussed within the Sharia. So it seems as if here we're seeing that this division that's been taken place hasn't really been deliberated over or thought of in great detail, and it's this which is obviously which is bringing the problem, which is obviously causing this issue. So we have to say that we can't accept this division that is taking place in the way Sheikh Izzuddin has mentioned here, and which has then been supported by Al-Qarafi, without necessarily bringing evidence to support what it is that he's saying. And in fact, he could further say that this is actually going mukhalifan lil ijma, and this is something which obviously is bringing about an issue. So what we'll turn to now is then, well, what's the alternative? How else can we understand that? So when we look at the definitions now, which is obviously very important to look at, what we have to say is that أن الأصل في البدع الشرعية إنما هو قول النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم من أحدث في أمرنا هذا ما ليس منه فهو رد. So here we saw, I mentioned this hadith during the introduction, that من أحدث في أمرنا هذا ما ليس منه فهو رد. So when we look at the word al-amr here, then what we mean by this is clearly the deen. Okay, we're clearly talking about the deen here. So matters have to be linked towards the deen. So we're not talking about umur al-muhdatha al-am. We're not saying in a general sense that any matter that is brought about, so whether it's new foods, or whether it's new modes of transport, or whether it's new modes of communication, that all these are considered as bid'ah. No, it is referring to, and this is a misunderstanding that is brought about, that Islam being traditional and wanting to be traditionally rooted is somewhat stuck in the dark ages, and it doesn't move forward with the technology. Quite the contrary. When it comes to technology, Islam advocates to its followers to utilize whatever resources that they can get their hands on in order to achieve the goals that they wish to achieve, both from a worldly perspective and also from a dini perspective. So this hadith is at the bedrock of defining what a bid'ah is, and it's mentioning here is man ahdasa fi amrina. So amrina is key here, that we're talking about the deen, and we're not talking about anything else here. So this is the definition of al-bid'ah sharia. Okay, and we need to have this definition in order to understand. However, we also have something which is called a bid'ah lughwiyya. Okay, and it's important to understand that. And you will find, for instance, that the word bid'ah will also be used for that, because one is a legal bid'ah and one is a lexical or linguistic bid'ah. So there's two to understand: a legal bid'ah and a linguistic bid'ah. And we've already defined what a legal bid'ah is. A legal bid'ah is, as being defined here, man ahdasa fi amrina hadha ma laysa minhu fahuwa raddun. That is a legal one, in which an individual innovates a practice in religion, and that is considered as a legal bid'ah. A lughwi one, a linguistic one, is one which is different. Okay, for instance, the matter which we'll touch upon with respect to the statement made by Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, in which he said in the hadith with respect to, or in the athar, with respect to Taraweeh, when he said, Ni'matil bid'ah. Now he used the word bid'ah here, but when the Sayyidina Umar is using the word bid'ah, he's using it in its linguistic meaning, because in the linguistic sense, a bid'ah is anything which did not exist in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, anything. But the Khulafa Rashidin hold a particular position with respect to the Sharia, and we'll touch upon that in due course. If we go back to this hadith, man ahdasa fi amrina hadha ma laysa minhu fahuwa raddun, we need to now look at the next part, which is ma laysa minhu, that which is not from it, okay? That which does not have a source, that which does not have a principle, or something which we can find, a root, something which we can hook onto within the nusus. So it's something which is coming from outside of the religion, and not something which is coming from within the deen itself. So it's a very concise but very deep, meaningful narration, which we can just touch upon again, which is man ahdatha. So that individual who innovates, brings something new, fi amrina, in our matter of religion, in religious affairs, hada ma laysa minhu, that which is not derived from it. It is not a derivation from the nusus at all. It is something which is coming outside of the deen. Fahuwa raddun, then that itself is rejected, which is clear to understand. So I wanted to just, at this particular juncture, is just to bring some other understanding to light, which is this view. We've mentioned that bid'ah is an act which is innovated, and we're mentioning here al bid'ah sharia. We're not referring to the linguistic one. We're categorically referring to the legal one. The linguistic one we'll leave for now. So if we see, as we've mentioned it, as we've defined it, is that thing which is no value. If so, individuals to do an act which has no basis in religion, and they think that they will be rewarded for it. Okay, this is the understanding: is they do an act which has no basis in religion, and they think they will be rewarded for it. So, for instance, in some cases, it can be in reality from outside of religion. Okay, for example, the fasting of silence. This exists or has existed in the past in some religions, but it has no precedent whatsoever within Islam. So, if somebody decided to do a particular act, which was of this silence fasting, and said that I'm not going to speak for 24 hours, with the view that they thought they will get reward for it, then this in itself is a bid'ah haqiqi. Okay, this is a bid'ah haqiqi in reality. There's no uncertainty. There's absolute clarity. This concept has never existed within the religion of Islam. It is something which is being innovated. There is no evidence for it. There's nothing in itself which a person can see how there can be any good in it whatsoever. It's an absolute clear, crystal clear fabrication. However, there can be another one which can be a little bit cloudier, which is more in its qualities, that it can be considered as a bid'ah. And that, for example, could be in terms of celebrating the Prophet ﷺ's birthday, in that one can define this as a bid'ah hasana, that what I'm actually doing is a good thing. I'm not doing a bad thing. But there is no, now, they'll say, well, here's those individuals who partake in this will say, well, this is an act of celebrating the Prophet ﷺ, sending durood upon him, and things of that nature. And therefore, and we can see that there is some of particular, on a general basis, does exist within Islam. However, the key point is that in terms of its qualities, it is still considered as a bid'ah. It's a bid'ah based on its sifat, its qualities. in which that was there a need for this particular act in the time of the Sahaba, for instance, or in the time of the Khulafa Rashidin? And if there was, then why wasn't this act brought about then if it brought about a particular purpose? So again, in this case, one can't define this, as we're seeing that this definition which exists about kind of grading them and placing them in various groups, that this is mubah, this is mandub, this is makruh, and this is haram, and this is wajib. This is an understanding which goes against the correct understanding of a bid'ah, and we shouldn't look at it as am makhsus, but rather it is a bid'ah in itself. The way we can separate between the two is one which is linguistically a bid'ah, and we've already defined that. And linguistically a bid'ah would be defined something which did not exist in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, which is in deen and has no significance whatsoever because it's been innovated and fabricated. Sorry, I think I've crossed the two over there for you just to confuse you even more. The linguistic one would be something which did not exist in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. So linguistically it's a bid'ah. However, in the legal meaning of it, it is not considered as a bid'ah. And that's particularly in the saying of the saying that Umar radiallahu anhu, which we'll move on to next. The other one is the Sharia version, which is the one in which some individual innovates something in the religion which hasn't existed in the past, which has nothing which exists within the hadith or the Quran, and bring about that understanding.
يسعك الفضاء الرحيم